So here's a run through of basics about doing perspective drawing. So I'm talking about 2-point perspective. So there's a horizon line with 2 vanishing points, and things are going to disappear towards the 2 vanishing points. So things on one side of a figure will disappear towards one vanishing point, and on the other towards the other. So start off by drawing the horizon line and 2 vanishing points. And then we're going to draw a front edge that's going to be like a corner of a block that we're going to draw. And so in our drawing, in perspective drawing like this, vertical lines remain vertical, but horizontal lines go off towards the vanishing points. So horizontal lines are going to slant in our drawings. So from that front edge that I've just drawn, it's going to be kind of a corner edge, if that makes sense, of a block. I've drawn lines disappearing off to the vanishing points, and they're going to be the sides of our figures. Then I've drawn 2 back edges to decide where the box I'm drawing is going to end. And then I've just filled everything in. So that's kind of the front 2 faces of a box. And now we need to figure out where the, erase the guidelines, yeah. And now we need to figure out where the back's going to go. So again, I'm going to draw lines from the corners, always disappearing to the vanishing points. So the only 2 directions things are going in are vertical for vertical lines, and towards the vanishing points for lines that are horizontal in real life. Nothing else should go in any other direction than vertical or towards a vanishing point. So guidelines to show where the back edges are going to go, and that will complete the back of the box for us. We just fill it in, and then we can erase the guidelines. And that's a box. Now, the middle of the figure can't be found by simply measuring, because front, back are different sides. What does that mean? So if I want to know where the middle of the box is, say I want to divide it up into 2 or 4 for some reason, I can't just measure that with a ruler, because the back on the diagram is a lot smaller than the front, because things that are further away look smaller when you're in perspective. So the units of measurement aren't constant, and if you just try and measure with a ruler and halve the number, you will get something that looks distorted. So what you need to do is make a diagonal cross, and where the diagonals of the cross meet, that is the center of the face. Having found the center, we can put more guidelines in, a vertical one, always truly vertical, and then a horizontal one that isn't going to be horizontal, but in fact is going to be once again towards our vanishing point. And then that gives us 4 parts that divide that face into 4. And although if you measure that with a ruler, the front ones are a lot bigger than the back ones, it looks right in perspective because things that are further away are supposed to look smaller. So further guidelines can help us divide it up further. So 4 more crosses, and then divide each of those 4 rectangles into 4 further rectangles to make 16. And then now that I've got a kind of grid that I've constructed, I can start making something more interesting. So what I'm making here is a letter N, and then that's the front face of the letter N, and then I can use further guidelines towards the vanishing points, again always towards a vanishing point, to figure out what's happening on the other faces of this figure. So there's where the top goes, and then just that slanty bit at the back I need to figure out. So I'm kind of figuring out where the middle slant bit goes towards the horizon, and then where the bit where the front block ends comes down. That should give us where the slanty bit at the back of the N ends, and then therefore where the slant goes to. So I can put the slant in the right place and fill that in. Then I can just start colouring it in and figure out where that back bottom bit goes to. Colour that in. And then erase all my guidelines. And there's a nice letter N in perspective. So things can be above or below or even on the horizon, and that will affect whether the figure looks like it's being viewed from the top or from underneath or kind of from front on. So there's a note about that. Where the figure is constructed in relation to the horizon determines whether we are looking over it or under it. In Danish they call it bird's eye perspective or bird's perspective, fugleperspektiv. So in English, bird's eye perspective, and then underneath they call it frog's perspective in Danish. So whether you're looking at it like a bird flying over it or a frog looking under it. So we are just going to make another little thing. So again, horizon, 2 vanishing points, front corner, and then disappearing towards the 2 vanishing points. And then I'm going to make a block, and then I'm dividing it up and halving it, figuring out where the middle goes. And then I'm going to do another thing where I figure out where the next block would be by imagining the block I've got to be half of 2 blocks. So I've kind of done a diagonal, but not in the middle of my shape, but from one corner of my shape to the end of my shape, to figure out what my shape is half of, and therefore if there was a similar shape next to it, where would it go? So that's the green lines. So if there was another block the same size next to it, it would go there. And if there was another block the same size next to that, it would go there. And if there was another block the same size next to that, it would go there, and then another one there. So what I've done is construct 5 blocks, and then you can see I've extended the tops to the other vanishing point to fill the whole thing in. And there's 5 blocks. And what I'm making there is some letters that are going to make a word. So first of all, I'm going to divide these up further with some diagonals to make little grids. So I've got 5 blocks that I've divided into 16, a grid of 16, and I'm going to make some letters out of that. So I'm going to start with a letter M. So there's the flat grid just to help me design it, and I'm going to transpose that to my perspective grid to give me the M there, and then just tidied that up. Then what I've made here is going to be a slightly stylized letter A. Then a T and an H, and again slightly stylized S. If I'd had more time to do this, I might have a more complex grid so I could do more detail on the S and make it look more curved, but I did what I had time for. And then just more lines to the vanishing points to figure out where things go. And there we are, the word maths in lovely perspective. Not a great colour scheme, little bit wonky in parts where I've rushed it a bit, and verticals don't look quite vertical, but you get the general idea of what you can do.